Yeah. By the way, has anyone ever tried the Subway diet? No? Okay, I thought so. Okay. Okay, I mean, there's so many stories I could tell. One of my favorite stories, so I'm part of this group called Monochrome, and a couple of years ago, we were invited to be the official Austrian representatives at one of the biggest art shows on the planet, the Biennial in Sao Paulo. And the great thing about that story is, and I really try to reduce it to the bare minimum, is that it had a couple of really interesting social engineering levels at different points of the project. The story was that we were asked to represent Austria at this biennial, but we told the curator that we don't want to do that because Austria had a really, really bad right-wing government back then, and we didn't want to represent Austria at that level. And she really insisted and said, come on, think about something really cool. And then we said, okay, we'll have the press release ready for you tomorrow morning, and she sent it out. And the press release stated that the official Austrian representative at the biennial would be a guy called Georg Paul Thomann. And all the newspapers reported about that, but of course that guy never existed. So we kind of like made up this fake artist. The cool thing was that because this press release was sent out, suddenly all the newspapers reported about that because journalists don't Google. And suddenly this guy who didn't exist, this art avatar, was suddenly representing Austria at the biennial in Sao Paulo in Brazil. So we went to Brazil. And in Brazil, we, as Monochrome, as the group, we were, of course, not important because they were waiting for Georg Paul Thomann, and we were just his technical support team. So we were a couple of people there, like, you know, like hanging stupid paintings and stuff like that, and drinking beer and having a nice time, chatting to other technical support teams. Because nobody was interested in us and nobody gave us business cards because we were not important. We were no curators or no artists. We were just like the technical support team. We were like the bottom of the hierarchy there, yeah? But because we were at the bottom of the hierarchy, we got access to a lot of interesting infrastructure at the biennial there. But the most important part was that all the other technical support teams who felt that they were on the same level as us, who had, you know, like beers with us, etc. Those guys, after a couple of days, we just told them what's going on. So we told them that we are actually the artists, that that guy doesn't exist, that he is not watching the porn channel and therefore not coming to the biennial and doing his job. Because those guys suddenly knew more than all the other guys at the biennial. Top curators and top artists and whatever. So they suddenly had this power of like, we know that that guy doesn't exist and we can do something crazy with that. And they started telling interesting, crazy stories about the lives and times of Georg Paul Thomann that he had. So Georg Paul Thomann had sex with the curator from Argentina on the second floor bathroom and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, we're like, there were technicians, and some of the stories were kind of like rude, but still, it was quite interesting to see like the geysers of rumors about this non-existing character bursting out and swapping in all the different corners of the biennial. And that's the last part of the story, because there are so many stories just about Georg Paul Thomann. A guy who was the official representative of Taiwan. He was a couple of white cubes next to the white cube of Georg Paul Thomann. And he had a problem, so we found out about that because he sent a public letter to other artists, but no one was really interested in his problem. So the problem was this guy, Chen Chichang, and he had the problem that overnight the administration had removed or altered his name tag. His name tag, in our case, it was Georg Paul Thomann, Austria. In his case, it was Chen Chichang, Taiwan. And they had removed the Taiwan and replaced the Taiwan by Taipei Museum of Fine Arts. And he didn't know why that happened. And it was really important for him to be the official Taiwanese representative because he heavily criticized Taiwan. And it was important for him to be the Taiwanese representative. So he was kind of pissed about, why is there this stupid museum name and not my home country's name there? So he tried to talk to the curators and to the administration. Nobody told him anything. But because we were kind of like the technical support teams, we knew the other technical support teams, and they of course know everything. So we found out that China had intervened. So one China policy. So China didn't want to have Taiwan as its own national representation there. So the Chinese delegation had intervened and said, if the Taiwanese guy gets its own representation there, we will cause massive diplomatic trouble. And we said, hey, we cannot let that be. So we have to help that guy in some way, in form of solidarity. So what we did is, because the letters, you know, Zhangjiang, Taiwan, they were kind of like adhesive letters. You could just like take them off. So we took off the T from Austria, and we had a T. And then went to Canada and said, come on, you fucking Canadians, you have 3 A's, you don't need 3 A's. And then we had an A. And then we got an I from Croatia. And the only problem was the W, because there are fucking no countries with W, yeah? But we had Puerto Rico. And then after a couple of hours running around, we had Taiwan in this like very campy, trashy way on the outside of his white cube, and suddenly he had his representation back again. The cool thing that happened was that many journalists took pictures of that, reported about the whole thing. And my favorite article about the whole thing appeared in the Taipei Times a week after the whole incident. And the Taipei Times is the second largest newspaper in Taiwan, yeah? And this newspaper had the headline, Austrian artist Georg Paul Thomann saves Taiwan. And so, and my final word to that is, a non-existing artist saves a country that should not exist. That's like as radical as postmodernism can get.
Are you sure you're not a yes man?